Hey guys, Mr. Riz here to help you out on the first day of the 5.2 note. So with this, we're going to make sure we are able to simplify any radical expression. And we also want to make sure we can add, subtract, multiply, divide radical expressions. So pretty much do anything with a radical expression. So let's start off first simplifying. Remember, when we're looking to simplify a radical, we're trying to see what that number can break into. And the index will tell us how many pairs of that number we would need. So if we have 32x to the 8th, let's break 32 down to what, like 4 times 8, 2 and 2, that is 4 and 2, 2 and 2. So a square root has an index level of 2. We need to have at least pairs. So we have a pair of 2's and another pair of 2's. So 2 2's can go outside, so that'd be a 4. And inside the square root would be this 2 left over by itself. Now, when it comes to variables, I mean, we could do the same thing and break down, say, x times x of x. But if you remember from before, the simple thing to do with variables is to divide. 8 divided by the index level of 2 is 4. So we have an x to the 4th breakdown. So 32x to the 8th, or the square root of 32x to the 8th, would be 4x to the 4th times radical 2. All right, next, let's break down, okay, the 4th root. So we need to have 4 of them to break them down. So 16 is 4 and 4, and that's 2 and 2, 2 and 2. All right, so we need a group of 4 for it to break down, and we actually have 4 2's. So the 4th root of 2, or 16, is just 2. We'll leave a 4th root over here. Nothing left over inside of it, but we'll just leave it in case anything happens with the variables. Okay, next, let's divide. Let's see. If we take 24 divided by 4, it doesn't come out, well, it doesn't, yeah, it does come out nicely. That's 6. So we have a to the 6th. But 13 divided by 4 does not come out nicely. 13 divided by 4 is 3 and 1/4. So we would have b cubed, 3 of them pop out, and then we'd have 1 of them in the 4th root. So 2a to the 6th b cubed, the 4th root b. All right, last problem here. All right, no numbers to break down. We just have the cube root of x to the 7th, y to the 9th. All right, so x to the 7th. If we divide 7 by 3, that'd be, let's see, that's 2 and 1/3. So we'd have an x squared breakout, and inside the cube root, we'd have 1x left over, 2 and 1 in the 3rd. And then 9 divided by 3 is 3 with 0/3. And so we just have 3 on the outside. Okay, not too bad. Okay, next, if we want to go ahead and divide, this is a little bit tricky. We can divide radicals inside of radicals if it works out nice. But if the number doesn't work out nice, if the number on the bottom does not divide, we have to multiply the top and bottom by that denominator. So let's go through here. And there is a little bit trick of what we need to do. All right, so we can't divide. Those are not in radicals. So if we want to divide 3 by radical 2, oops, wrong button I pressed. What we need to do is to take 3 over radical 2, and we're going to have to multiply it by radical 2x over radical 2x. So the top is real easy. 3 times radical 2x is 3 radical 2x. The bottom, we can multiply those radicals together and get radical 4x squared. And how does that simplify here? Well, the bottom here, square root of 4 is 2. The square root of x squared is x. So the answer becomes 3 radical 2x over 2x, and that's proper. You never ever want to have a radical on the denominator. Okay, let's talk about where this changes. If we have x divided by the cube root of y. All right, we are not going to multiply by the cube root of y over the cube root of y, but we're kind of, it's going to be something close. So a cube root, if you think about it, we need to have a cube inside. So if we multiply by the cube root of y squared over the cube root of y squared, the bottom becomes the cube root of y cubed now, and that's going to break down to just y. The top, if we multiply here, just is x times the cube root of y squared, and that's all it is. Now we would see if anything else on the outside simplifies or breaks down, but that's kind of it. So let's work on simplifying these expressions. first thing you want to do is to see if it can break down at all. So before we jump into this square root, let's change this to x cubed times, let's see, 7 divided by 2 is 3.5. So we have a y cubed times the radical y. So we still have a radical on the denominator, but now all we need to do is multiply by radical y over radical y, instead of multiplying by radical y to the 7. Like that would have been way more work in the end. So the tops here become x cubed radical y. The bottom becomes y cubed radical y squared, which ends up being, now if you want to do this in your head, you probably can, but this would be y cubed times the square root of y squared is y. So our final answer is x cubed radical y over y squared. All right, next, what about if we're taking a radical of a fraction? Well, the square root of a fraction is the same thing if we square root the top and square root the bottom. All right, radical 6 does not break down. Radical 5x does not break down, so we need to do the next step. Let's get the radical off the bottom. We're going to multiply by radical 5x on the top and on the bottom. So the bottom becomes radical 25x squared. The top, we can actually multiply 6 times radical 5. That's radical 30x. All right, so the bottom here, square root of 25 is 5. The square root of x squared is x. 30, does that break down at all? Let's see, that's 6 and 5, 2. No, it still doesn't break down. And so it's okay to have a radical on the top, even if that's the only thing on the top, as long as you don't have a radical on the bottom. And that's it. This does not simplify at all because this 5x is no longer in a radical. Only numbers inside of radicals can work with other numbers inside of radicals. Okay, now multiplying radicals. So I just kind of explained right there, you can multiply numbers outside with radicals with numbers outside. So we can multiply the 5 times 3 and get 15. And then we will multiply everything on the insides together. Negative 12 times 18. Geez, I don't know what that is. 180 plus 30, negative 216 maybe. A times a squared is a cubed. B to the 4 times, that's b to the 6. All right, so now that we got that, let's break that down. Remember, with the cube root of a negative is 1. So, okay, we had a negative 15 times. All right, let's see what else breaks out of here. 216. That's what, 36 and 6. And that's 6 and 6. Now we could break it down, but we have a group of 6s here. So a 6 breaks outside. A cubed, 3 divided by 3 means an a would break out, and b to the 6 means a b squared would break out. And so we can multiply this together. The total answer is negative. What is this? 90 ab squared. It works out perfectly. Wow. All right, let's work on this next one over here. So same thing, we multiply outside numbers with outside numbers. So 2 times 3 is 6, radical. 8 times 2 is 16. X cubed, x to the 5th is x to the 8th. Y and y squared would be y to the 4th. All right, the square root of 16 is 4. X to the 8th, the square root of that is x to the 4th, and the square root of y to the 4th is y squared. We just multiply now the 6 and 4 together. That is what? 1224 x to the 4th y squared. Looking good. All right. So your homework tonight is to go through and do these problems here. So some of them are just breaking down. Remember, when you're dividing, you're going to figure out, okay, what you need to get on the denominator there. And then anything multiplying together is good. What's weird with radicals is adding or subtracting them. That's actually becomes the difficult part. So I will see you guys next time for that. Until then, if you guys have any questions asked, make sure you guys show your work on these worksheets and you guys turn it in when you're done. Have a good day.